can't. Tell me something.
My whole thing, gave on me. Don't take on.
What is C's favorite activity? Wait, I just had a joke. You made me lose it. On TV.
Alright.
You're in a trance. Let's see why. No, you punch me.
And as you can see here, what the title of this brief presentation is salute to our original soldiers in the FOI. What I do here is try to teach the history, black history, significant things in our history before my students in different areas and different subjects. And so this is a brief talk by two friends of mine from the Muslim community who are historic in that contribution of the Nation of Islam. And there's much to be said, and I know they're not going to have enough time to say it all today. But what they give you, remember, because I may test you on it on your next exam for your belts. You're no sucker. I'm good on that. I'll get you in front of the class and what did Dennis Ahmed say about so-and-so? What did Mubasshir say about so-and-so? All right. And also, we have a special guest who I protect wherever he goes around the country, Imam Benjamin Bilal. And I don't know if he wants to say a few words later on, but if you heard of big names in the Muslim community, like Minister Farrakhan and Elijah Muhammad and those kinds of men, but this young man is moving up on that same ladder. So his brother came to me one day and asked me to protect him and give him security and put the best around him. So that's what I do with True Human Security. Some of y'all know that already. And so we got some power in the room. And one of the powers was still is a lieutenant who spent a lot of time in the FOI. And he recently decided that he was going to give that experience and put some of that experience behind True Human Security, what we do. And he's a student of Imam Wallace Muhammad, just as Imam Benjamin Bilal is, just as my wife is, just as I am, and just as Dennis Ahmed is. We all look at Imam Wallace Muhammad as a man who has great knowledge, taught many folks around the world and the country about Islam and how life should be. And if y'all know your soke, I try to do the same thing here, different degrees. And so without any more, you see, I'm just going to go through the pictures real quick and then I'm going to invite them up. These pictures here represent some of the history in the Nation of Islam. Elijah Muhammad was an author also. He wrote several books. These were like the 4 main books. And if they wanted to go into these later on while they're talking, then they can do that. I did this several years ago to let students know who influenced my life as I grew up. And Elijah Muhammad, Imam Wallace Muhammad, Malcolm X, and Minister Farrakhan. All these guys had something to do with making me the way I am today. They don't know it, but they did. These are some of the original FOI. I believe these brothers were in Brooklyn. And one guy here, one of the brothers here, his picture is blown up over here. His name is Abdur Khalifa. The significant thing about him was that he gave his life in protection of women, or a woman who was being abused. And he knocked on the door. The guy opened the door, blew him away, killed him. So the community came together and decided to name the mosque after him. So over there on Bedford and Madison, it's called Abdur Khalifa, after this brother. This picture is here, the headshot is over there. This is some of the FOI activities at that same mosque. This is the man here who's responsible, the same person right here, who's responsible for making me into an FOI. We became close through the years till he passed. At At that time, he was known as Richard AX. And y'all heard me say the other night what the X was about. You remember that, I think, right? If you don't, ask. I'll tell you. Maybe I'll tell you in a different way. Big dinner here for that. You know this guy? Who's that?
Muhammad Ali.
Muhammad Ali. And he was a FOI also. And these are some of the brothers that were assigned to protect him on his security detail. And that's Lieutenant Richards again. This was the man who came along after his father. That's his father. That's him right there when he was a young guy. And this is him in his last days. You know the banner that y'all wear? Man means money. And this is where the picture come from. This is an original shot where he first came up with that slogan. Y'all gonna make it famous in Bedford-Stuyvesant. So if somebody talk to you about what a man is, you know what to say now, Mr. Intellectual, right? What a woman is. Okay. This is the family. This is the wife of Elijah, and these are the 4 boys. You know we had a display at the old. Some of y'all were at the old dojo, and this is this display as you see here. Now this uniform is not the same one. This is this belongs to some other brother. This one belongs to Mubasshir back there. He didn't want to give up his uniform at the time, so I had to get somebody else's that put up on display. Because I asked him several times, let me hold your uniform so I can put it in the dojo. And he actually tried this on now. This is many years ago. I never had a uniform. You had a uniform, Dennis?
Sure.
They used to walk the streets like this now. Can you imagine black men walking the streets with this on and a hat?
Fez.
Fez? Excuse me. Fez. I gotta make sure I say it right now. That's for white jump you. So, and this was the other uniform. I'll let Mubasshir talk about it. This is the brother Abdul Khalifa, who the masjid is now named after. I did a little Photoshop thing here. You don't know Soke, don't Photoshop, do some graphic. That's the sign you'll see if you pass down Madison and Bedford, you'll see that on the building. This is the man who originally brought the message of the Nation of Islam to the black community. And see, he's not a black man, right? Now maybe Imam Benjamin Bilal may want to say a few words to you about that and give you a little bit more detail. This is him when he started. This is his last days. So we all age. Y'all got some before pictures of me and how I look now, so we all age. This is the FOI and drilling formation. This is the same man that trained me as an FOI, leading the history, leading the brothers in the drilling at Masjid Khalifa in the early days. And this is the man, this is his big brother. That's Elijah Muhammad II, named after his father. This is the man that was responsible for the FOI and teaching them and training them in security. And he's still alive. He's down in Mississippi, enjoying his life. He's in his 80s right now. Some people are trying to get him up to New York City. But we'll see. If he does, I'll let y'all know so you can come and see him to shake his hand. Him and I talk all the time now. So, shall be it. Dennis Ahmed is a retired New York City school teacher. He's also a retired school principal. And I'm not sure what year he came into the FOI, but let's give a little Dennis Ahmed. Mubasshir Akthab. He had me over to his house the other day. We had some cake, man, that was knocking me out. It wasn't sweet, but it was great. And his wife was lovely and very supportive of this whole idea, and she baked us a cake. So I give y'all a taste of that cake also. Mubasshir is a retired janitor in New York City. But, he'll tell you what company he worked for and get the things he did with his life. And a lieutenant in the FOI. So he had higher rank than I did. And I'm glad to have them both here. It's being documented. I just want to stand beside him because he got a red, white, and blue tie on. You see, now FOI didn't wear something like this back in the day.
No.
Never. So I'll let him explain all that, and we go from here. You can have a seat. Dennis Ahmed is going to start talking first, and then you're going to hold your questions until both of them finish. And when they finish, then you can ask all the questions you want. Okay?
With God's name, beneficent, merciful, thank Allah for His Prophet Muhammad and all the prophets from Adam through Muhammad. I greet you in peace. Assalamu alaikum. Just quickly, some of the people that are in these photographs that I can remember. I don't know if you know all the brothers here, Brother Rashid, but this is Secretary Aubrey. You remember Secretary Aubrey? He's out in Chicago. He's one of the first people that Imam Muhammad took with him when he went to when he started up. Brother used to be on the FOI table. This is Brother Rudolph. And what's the brother's name? Okay. This is Jalal Rushdan. We also call them Roosevelt 6X. We also call him Sonny Phillips. He was a musician, very good on the keyboard. He's out in California now. He used to play with Houston Person, played with all the game people. A couple of brothers from the islands are here. These two brothers, they were both electricians, very good. I thought this was Brother Lambert for a minute. Brother is the imam down in, I think that's it. Yeah, he's the imam in Trinidad. Over here, this is one of my colleagues. He's one of, that's one of the people I was very close to. It's Clarence Sevenex, or Hussein Shabazz. He was the first lieutenant of the Nation of Islam here in New York City. He was top martial arts man, black belt. Over here, I think you spoke about Rudolph. And over here we have, we used to call him D.I. He was my dean, the dean of boys at the University of Islam in Brooklyn. And the I stood for investigator. He was a dean and an investigator. Also, he was known as a commandant of the FOI orientation class. He used to sell, 500, 600, 700 papers a week. And there's some of my former students back here, as a matter of fact. This was a drill team. I didn't make this photo, I was in the back. There was a drill team competition between New York and Boston. And we came out and did what was referred to as a royal step, real easy. This is the practice session. When we did the real competition, Mr. Farrakhan's brother wanted to be the one who led the call to command. Richard Adex, lieutenant, was a part of the drill team. So we came out and we did our nice moves. Everybody was cheering for us. And then the brother started calling commands, and we had us going all different kind of. We didn't win that competition. I'd like to start off quickly by going over a few things from my personal history. I see we have some young people in here. Is there any people here, younger folks here, that live in walking distance to where we are now? Okay, so I mentioned that to say that that's where I grew up, walking distance from where we are. And I was born a couple of 2 or 3 blocks away at what they call Interfaith. At that time it was called St. John's Hospital. So this is a familiar community location as far as I'm concerned. I didn't have anything to do with the police station that used to be down here on the corner. They knocked that down and moved it over to Utica Avenue. But this is basically a home for me. Also, I wanted to mention to you about my education. Since I grew up here, I was involved in, I'm going to say right from the beginning, from elementary school through college. I was not the top student in my class. I was far from it, as a matter of fact. I used to struggle with my C's in class. And I mention that to say this. I also participated in athletics. And Allah blessed me. I was good at it. In high school, I went to Wingate High School over here on 600 Kingston Avenue, not too far from here. They were taking students from what they call Bedford-Stuyvesant over to Wingate. You may not believe this if you know where Wingate is now, on New York Avenue, on Kingston Avenue and Rutland Road. But they took students from this area over there so they could integrate the school. It was shortly after Martin Luther King did the bus boycott. And just before that was the Brown versus the Board of Education case that said that school systems should be integrated. That was the first step. Brown's daughter lived across the street from a school of all white students, and she couldn't attend the school. She had to go to another school. So she said, why shouldn't I go to the school that's closest to my house? So they went to court, and Thurgood Marshall and a lot of top lawyers took the case to the Supreme Court and won. That was in like 1954, 1955, the Brown versus the Board of Education. I say that because they had black people didn't live really on the other side of Bergen or on the other side of St. John's. That basically was almost completely white area. So what happened was they wanted to integrate the school. It was a brand new school. They wanted to make it a test school to show how 20% of the population of that school would equal the 20% of African Americans in the United States will go to the school. It wouldn't be all white. So they went to PS3, if you know where that is, on Jefferson. They went to 35, PS 35 on Decatur. They went to 258 Macon Junior High School and took students from there, and the school I went to. And we went there, and over the course of time, we not only integrated it, we integrated the neighborhood and took it over. I don't think you can find too many white people over there now, except for the Jews that are located on Eastern Parkway. But when I got to Wingate, I just want to touch on this sports thing. I was able to run I was a track person. I was able to run as a freshman, which I had just mentioned to Mubasshir. But in my sophomore year, we became a track power. Wingate became a track power. We always are familiar with Boys High School. Boys High School always had a fantastic team. But in my junior year, sophomore year, we became city Brooklyn champs. We were able to beat Boys High. And that was a turning point in the development of the school. Shortly after that, the following year, we won the Penn Relays, we won national championships, we won Eastern State championships. We were a powerhouse. 5 runners. We had a relay team and another runner by the name of Paul Anthony lived on Decatur Street. He was the fastest person on the East Coast. With that, I was able to put myself through college. I mention this because I see we got some young folks here that are in school. The thing that made me successful as an athlete was the discipline that goes along with martial arts. Very, very similar. The discipline is very similar. It's hard. It requires a lot of effort. I'll get to that a little later on. I got a scholarship to Morgan State College. I don't know if you're familiar with Morgan. It's a historical black college. Years ago, basically, this is where most of the athletes went, to historical black colleges, because there were opportunities in the so-called white schools that weren't there for black athletes. Didn't matter. We were successful there also. We set a NCAA record for we broke an all-time running record. It was the oldest record on the record books in my sophomore year at Morgan. And shortly after that, my junior year, I received a Achilles tendon rupture in track meet. And that was the end of my running experience. But it set up something else at the time. This is in now 1965, going into 1966. And the Nation of Islam had always been paramount in my life. I recall in 1956, you said the students are sharp. I'm going to listen to this now. Listen to this. There will be a reward for you if you get this one right. In 1956, I was 12 years old. And somebody, we call it fishing. That's what I found out it was. We were on the corner doing what we normally do on the corner, 12 or 13 years old. And it was in the evening. And the person came up and started to talk to us about Elijah Muhammad, talked about the history of our ancestors, and it started to, click into my head to hear all these talks. And then later on, they used to bring the Amsterdam newspaper in the house, and Mr. Muhammad's article would appear in the Amsterdam News. So I became somewhat familiar with this teaching, this new teaching. It was different, it's kind of like, went in there. I didn't run out and join the Nation of Islam at 12 years old, but it stayed in there, it was in there. And later on, after my track experience was over, I was in an all-black school. We were talking about the pen relays. When we went to these athletic events, one of the things we used to love to do, and I don't want you to be racist or think of me that way too bad, we used to enjoy beating the white schools. I mean, that was fun. If you had a big school in front of us, or we were competing against, running them down and was a pleasure. We just enjoyed that. So, in fact, if you were to go to the pen relays now, every time a runner is in front of another runner from a school that is predominantly black, you hear the whole crowd start standing up and cheering, "Get him!" Those are the things that kind of stimulated us. So that was always something there about that. But at Morgan, that 65, 66 year, same time that I got injured, was the same around the time that Malcolm was assassinated. He was assassinated in 65, February 65. So it's around the same time that we were running. We set this national record in the 13th of February, 1965. Malcolm was assassinated like a week after that.
21st.
The 21st. And we had the people in Selma walking over the Pettis Bridge. The week before we went out to Detroit to run at the Cobo Arena, they were beating young people, old, young, dogs, horses. They were beating people down on the Pettis Bridge. So we were riled up. The following week they were supposed to go back for a second, but they canceled it. But we were in Detroit. And this was in two sections. The first section, normally the fastest teams would be in the seated section. But since we were from a black school,